Let's see if I got this done. Okay, we're recording. I want to welcome Juan. So Juan, thank you for being here, and I know you have to run, so we're going to pummel you with a bunch of questions. Tell me why virtual is going to be important for us, and how's it going to work, and what do we have to expect, and definitely touch on how am I going to shop for a job at Fox without Fox knowing that? I mean, without CNN knowing that I'm shopping for a job at Fox in the virtual
Cool.
convention.
Thank you again for the invitation. I have a lot of notes I plan on sharing with you guys, and hopefully it answers most of you guys' questions. Again, my name is Juan Diasgranados. I am the Public Affairs Manager down here in Miami-Dade County, Florida, for the 8th largest jail system. That's my full-time job. My part-time job is serving as staff liaison between NABJ and NAHJ for this year's upcoming virtual convention, and also a proud member of media-related professional groups. So, so look, as you know, the conference is 3 weeks away, and I can tell you that the numbers have been great in regards to registration. We saw a big uptick last week because early bird registration ended. So, whenever you promote that early bird registration, last day to register, we get a jump of 300-400 folks. So I don't have the exact number of how many people have registered, but I can tell you we are past 1,000. And with a lot of people looking for jobs, especially during these tough times, we expect those numbers to grow as well. And let's be honest, most of the folks like me and you, we like to register for things last minute. So I'm sure those numbers are going to continue to decline as we get closer to the date.
You talk about me and you. What you talking about?
I'm a last minute person all the time. So, the biggest draw obviously is going to be the career fair. This year we have more than 70 companies and recruiters who have committed to being in, at this year's conference. And look, most of them, they did not sign up just to sign up. A lot of them have open positions, so they're looking to fill open positions at their companies. There are some sessions where if you do sign up, you'll get a meal voucher through Hub to have a meal actually delivered to your door. So I don't have the exact name of the sessions. I can get that to you. I know this, it's a couple of them, where if you sign up, when you register for the conference, there's an option saying, hey, do you want to attend this luncheon? Just like if you were at a regular in-person convention, hey, do you want to attend this breakfast? You click the check mark, and then, you register for that session. And then, before that session starts, an hour before or 2 hours before, we're going to have a company, take your information, take your address, and then you're going to get a meal delivered right before your session. So it feels like it's an actual luncheon or actual breakfast. So that's really cool, and something new and innovative this year since we're going virtual. And I also want to mention that I'll also be hosting 3 sessions. 2 of them are directly PR related. So I'll go ahead and talk about the first. I'll talk about all 3 actually. So the first is public relations in beast mode. This is where we'll be talking with 3 different panelists about their roles at their jobs and how they deal with crisis communication, and what does that look like. We've all been there. We've been sitting there eating lunch one day, thinking it's going to be a slow day, and then bam, your phone is off the hook. Do you have a crisis communication plan in place? Who's going to go on camera? These are all things that you have to prepare for, because when something happens, you don't have time to sit here and wonder who's going to go on camera or what do we do now. So that's going to be one of the panels that I'm hosting. The second one is actually my favorite, and that's your traditional transitioning from journalism to PR. Some may call it heading to the dark side. I don't see it that way. Let's be honest. If you actually look around NABJ, and maybe Terry, maybe you have the numbers, but I think a lot of folks who are NABJ members now are either PR folks, academia folks, or entrepreneurs. So, we won't say that out loud, but it's definitely true when you look to your left and look to your right. So, many of us started in journalism, and for one reason or another, we said, hey, the money's not there, or, we needed more stability, or, we want a better lifestyle, or, just life in general. It made us switch. So a lot of us switched over to PR, and we never looked back. We close that door and we just keep going forward. So, and who's to say that you can't incorporate journalism into your PR job now? Because I know in my role, I do. So, I internally at my job, I develop a newsletter. Also within my department, my unit, we have a video services team where we put out packages just like on TV to share on our social media platforms. And the best part is, I still get my weekends. So we'll be talking to some panelists on why they made the switch and asking them why it's better being on the PR side. And finally, the last panel I'm putting together is not really PR related, but I do think it's interesting. Is we're going to be speaking with 4 different Black police chiefs from around the country, and we're just going to be talking to them because they're in a very tough predicament. They're Black, but also they're police officers. So how do you navigate both worlds? When you wake up in the morning, you're Black, but you're putting on the blue uniform. So, and we're going to kind of pick their brains and see, what do they think about the protest? Are they in agreement with the protest? What do they hope comes out of, the protest that took place 2 months ago? So, we're going to kind of see where they fit in the puzzle. And, we're going to show some images. And, we're just going to see where their head is at. And I think it's going to be a really great dialogue. It's going to be moderated by myself and Daryl Forges over with CNN. So, yes, we have a lot to offer this year. And, and although the conference may look and feel different, we're going to do our best to make sure it's just as good, if not better, than an in-person conference. So I'm open for questions.
Talk to us about the what's the experience going to be like for everyone? Will there be breakout rooms? Some of it's pre-recorded, some of it's live. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I would say about 60 to 70% of the panels and webinars are being pre-recorded, so I had one earlier today, and I have a couple more taking place later this week, but there will be some live sessions as well, and it's going to be very interactive. We're going to put up some polls, we're going to ask open-ended questions. I have a call later this evening with the presidential forum. We're in hopes of getting both candidates. We'll see what happens, but we have put out the invitation to both candidates. And it looks like we're going to have a couple of journalists interviewing them. Still in the very early stages because, they haven't committed yet. So we're still trying to figure out what that will look like. But obviously that will be live as well. So I would say it's going to be very, it's going to be from Wednesday to Saturday, which is the official conference date. So there's going to be activities going on throughout the day. There's still going to be the the sports party Friday night. I can't release too many details on that because they want to make it a surprise as to how they plan on unveiling that. But all of the things that we would have in an in-person conference are just being transformed, and I can guarantee you that they will be in the virtual conference.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask what platform you all are using.
So we're using for probably 80% of our panels and webinars and just overall content, we're using Big Marker. Are you familiar with them?
I'm not familiar with Big Marker.
Okay, yeah. So we're using them.
So does that also include your interactions, like your polling and the and your live events and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's a very powerful platform. It includes all of that. Yes.
Okay. So no Zooms.
Some are using Zoom, but the majority are Big Marker. If people are using, we have some folks who are pre-recording on Zoom, and then they're being transferred over to Big Marker. But Big Marker is our platform.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So they dress it up. They'll put the nice chyrons on, and they'll have our logo on there. So it will.
So does anyone have any other questions for Juan before he trails off to that meeting? Now, Juan, you've been one of the things that he didn't share, but there'll be a virtual visual room. When you click on a logo, you're going into the room of that logo, and then you'll populate. And then in the career fair, you could probably post an interview and schedule that interview because there's only going to be three career people per room. And so that way you won't have to worry about being blocked or overriding. Or, like at real convention, we have a waiting line, people waiting for potential interviews. And so that's going to be a plus. And also the privacy of the resume, just in case you're interviewing with someone that is a competitor, because the competitor also will have a booth there too. So CNN can look in and see who's interviewing at Fox. So a lot of our members ask that question.
No, it's a lot of work is going into it, and I think the benefit of a virtual conference is that it's cheaper. So I think registration is hovering around $180 or $200, whereas an in-person conference is usually $300 or $400. And then, you know, that's not adding on the hotel, the flight, the meals. So, you know, we think that we're going to get, a significant amount of folks, especially the days leading up to it, you know, folks looking for jobs to register, because you could be sitting on your couch and you could register from, you know, Miami, Florida, or from the Bahamas, or from San Diego. So we think that the lower cost will be very attractive to many of our members as well.
Yep, you get to wear the same shoes and no one will know it. That's a good thing. Also, one of the other questions, are there any student-specific sessions being assembled? Yeah, we have the student on the board. I'm on the board. There's several on the board. The student rep has put together 4 or 5 different forums. We're also going to have a mentoring process. So I'll be putting that link in there because we still need some mentors to sign up. And the mentoring process is a part where we actually have a personal experience with some of the up and coming, some of the seasoned people. It could be cross mentoring, it could be up and down mentoring, the ladder. And so I'll put that link in there. I'm asking someone to send it to me right now. Any other questions for Juan before he has to go?
Terry, do you happen to know of any other PR sessions? I haven't had a chance to look at the list, but
funny you should ask. Misty, tell us about your session.
So Juan, my session is called How to Make at Least 6 Figures as a Publicist. And it's one of the live sessions. I don't remember exactly which date it's on. I think it's that Thursday, but it will be one of the live sessions. And so it's going to be myself, Tony Harrison, who is the founder and CEO of Etched Communications, and Amber Casanave, who is the founder and CEO of Cass & Company. Both of them, ton of experience, significant agency experience as well, and very, very successful with their agencies. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Nice, that sounds
Well,
sign up for that one.
I actually had one other question before you go. Is there any session that is going to focus on, I guess, PR and social justice? I mean, are there sessions that will focus around, besides the police panel that you're putting together?
Let me check on the list. I think there's
the ones we currently have one are going to be focusing on police reform. It's going to be talking about, but it's under the COVID-19 innovation bubble. Like my workshop is on developing yourself for the C-suite and falling under social justice reform, and it's under innovation bubble because of the tools that will be added to it. So if you can go to nabj.org or nahj.org and you will go to the conference, you'll see a lineup of all of the conferences that are there. We have 110, I think, so far. It's pretty vast. Yeah, and that's like 50% of what we normally have when we're live, and it's still not enough. So there is a lot of social justice reform, but it's falling under some very mainstream stuff because we're using some very high profile people that are coming in to discuss it. So that most of that's on the site.
And a lot of it happened so late because, a lot of panels and so forth were due back in February, March, and then this was before COVID, this was before, George Floyd. So we were doing a lot of scrambling, and, as you can imagine, we want to stay up to date. So, but we were able to insert some, and I can get you the full list, and I can send it over to you, Terry, if you want to share it with the members.
Yeah, okay, you could do that. And if people want to see the current workshops, they are sitting on the site under the conference page too. And they are still evolving because whatever shows up in August will be based on sponsorship. And I'm right now negotiating with 2 PR companies to do one on diversity and equity. And we're waiting for the $sign so that things can be added as we speak. That's the NABJ way, So, Juan, I appreciate you for coming aboard, and thank you for everything you did for me on the media-related team and reaching out to me during that time when nobody could find me. So, and also thanks for what we did in Miami. I think we did a fantastic job. Misty was there, and all of our PR panels, including the ones we had with Disney, were standing room only. And so hopefully we're going to have virtual standing room only this time. One of the challenges we have is not preparing and making workshops available for PR people, and that's what we were very, very concerned about. So we're glad to know that our traditional workshop, the one that's most full, is transitioning to PR. And a lot of journalists fill that up. And so I'm glad that you're doing that one, because we've done that traditionally for, oh no, since I've been a member, 19 years. And we've also done C-suite and how to launch your own company. So that's why we asked Simone to come forward. And so we appreciate it, Juan. And anything you need to hear from us to take back to your meeting, or you're going to be just looking at logistics now for the meeting?
Yeah, we're just trying to, you know, dot the I's, cross the T's. I do have one last question for you, Terry. Do you happen to know the percentage of NABJ total members and how many are PR and versus journalism? I'm always very interested in that, to see how many people are coming on our side.
Well, it changes with registration. It changes with convention. But we had 743 members. So we're a substantial size. But we have grown because, well, you know, some of our jobs have now become journalism jobs. You know, we had bloggers, now bloggers are journalists. so it switches back and forth, but we're around, I think we're at 658 members so far from the total count, but it fluctuates because there's a lot of people who kept their full-time membership, but they're working in PR because they want the full-time.
And that's something, you know, I'm pushing for on, you know, when I go into these meetings, I'm letting them know, like, hey, you know, not all of us are journalists. You know, we work in PR, we're entrepreneurs. So I'm making sure that our voices are heard and we're being represented at the table. So again, thank you again for an invitation. I plan on being back. I just have to go another phone call and see what's happening over on the presidential search side. So, but thank you again. If you have any questions, you can email me. I put it inside the chat, and you know, we'll just kind of go from there.
All right, great. And also, don't forget now, when you go back then, we do have a constitutional amendment on there that the media-related people should be full-time. We should have full-time benefits because we pay the same price as everybody else. So we need to be able to vote for everybody and do all those things. So that agenda is there. So
perfect. Okay.
We want you to continue to be a warrior for that one.
I will. I got you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, I'm gonna try to load up these bios and move them forward. And I just want to go, since we're talking about convention, I'm gonna go straight to Misty, and then Toska, and then Simone. And people are checking in as we speak, so we're still recording here. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat. And Tony is the one that's coordinating the questions for me. As he sees them, he tells me what I have to do. And are you good with that, Manny? You got it down? Well, Misty and I have been partners in crime for a long time. Thanks to her and a couple of others, we were able to really impact the last two conferences with PR panels. We've not had a not standing room only panel in two years. And thanks to Misty and all of us pulling together, showing our viability. And also, Juan spoke earlier about it being the dark side. Misty, can we go ahead and just be in unison? It is the lucrative side. I'm sorry, it's never been dark in my life, but
that's true.
It is the lucrative side, and you are an owner-managed business as well. And over the course of your career, you work with the city, the government, you've been an agency, you've been a nonprofit, and of course, that big mountain that always have to climb, higher education, because higher education always thinks public relations is not viable. You know, they always think we are extra, and we always have to realize that they don't come to us when there's a crisis, and the higher education needs to utilize us more when they're in the planning phase and not in the reaction phase. And so I love what you've done. You've merged your company. You had two companies. You were working with the great Phyllis Bailey, my friend. And you are also producing for BET, aren't you?
I did. I was a while ago. I was a web producer for them in New York. Back in, oh gosh, it's been some years now, but yeah, that was a great experience. And that was before, you know, before everybody became content producers. That was kind of like pre-content producers.
Oh yeah, that was back when all the jobs were PR and there was something else. And but you are also you came over as a television producer, and you
right. So I started as a news producer at the Fox affiliate in Houston. And that's where I cut my teeth. So, you know, I have that journalism background, and I didn't know about the relationship between journalists and publicists in terms of like that, kind of like that friction until I became a publicist. And it was
the
like,
marriage that wants to be a divorce. Yeah, I got you.
So it's definitely it was a learning curve in that regard because I didn't understand. But I will say, since I would say in the last several months, especially since COVID and since all of the social injustice, at least in my experience, I've seen some of that shift. So I've had a number of journalists reach out consistently, actually, for sources, for stories, to help them cut through the noise, to the point that I actually started a resource, an expert media database, because I was getting so many requests for people, and my clients obviously can only satisfy so many of those. So I feel like even though the world is in upheaval as it relates to journalists and publicists, at least in my experience, I think they're starting to value us a little bit more because, journalism is in crisis itself.
Right.
I mean, journalists, unfortunately, the institution has been shot, I think unfairly, by many, many factors. But, I feel like I have almost a daily battle with people, intelligent people, who want to point and blame the media for everything that goes wrong in society. And even though I'm not a bona fide journalist anymore, I still find myself defending the institution of journalism. And because we are close, sisters and brothers, I just feel like it's all our fight. And so it's unfortunate, but I think I think it's a job that we all have to kind of undertake in making sure that people understand we're just here to tell the story in most cases, I think.
I totally agree with you, Misty. And here's my statement. I think that we are all storytellers. One is advocacy journalism versus we give up our investigative hat. We're going to put on our advocacy hat. From your perspective, the relationship, well, I always say we're a marriage, and everybody thinks we're going to divorce, but we never will. What's your perspective of the relationship with journalists and publicists, especially with the focus on coronavirus? We got two pandemics going on. One is coronavirus, one is social justice. So we have a racial pandemic and we have a health pandemic. So what do you think is the best practices for relationships? Because it's about relationships.
Well, I think, I do think that journalists have come to the realization on their own just how valuable we are or how valuable we can be. Just like we're all sitting at home, and that's the reason why we were all able to witness the George Floyd murder. We're all sitting at home, and so it's like the journalists have to feed the beast. I mean, they always have had to feed the beast, but now it's at another level. I personally have not seen this level of chatter and noise and conversation in my entire career. I mean, everybody's talking about everything all at the same time. And so in order for a journalist to get a story through, I think a lot of times they're starting to rely on people like us who have bona fide sources, people we've already vetted, who they can rely upon to help tell those stories. So I actually think that they're starting to value that relationship more now than ever before. And, when you're looking at COVID, how many COVID stories can you tell until, you're looking for something new and fresh. And what do? You go through your Rolodex, or your database, and you find that reliable publicist who probably has a client with a unique twist or something like that. So I just feel like that relationship is starting to shift a little bit.
I like what you're saying, because you and I both have to fight this battle. We just exchanged emails. And I do want to announce, too, that it's not official until Tuesday when one of the largest PR companies in the country has announced a partnership with us that I help broker, and they're promising us over $1 million in-kind services to build that relationship between PR and journalism and deal with the crisis that we have. What are the needs of your PR clients different now than they were 3 months ago? For instance, I've had to go to my clients and rewrite their positioning statements so they can seem like they're engaged and not losing their customers. And their concern is about, sometimes their concern is about social justice, but it's the fact that, they're going to boycott us. Sephora got hit, and Sephora reached out to me, and I was able to reach out to a local vendor here who's been trying to get in Sephora with shelf space for almost 10 years. And now they're talking with Miss Kina about her cosmetic having shelf space. But I had to rewrite their positioning statements. What are the needs of your PR clients different than they were 3 months ago?
Well, I definitely think that now that all the statements have been written and everybody's talked about how they believe Black Lives Matter, whether they really do or not, I think some clients, what the shift that I'm seeing is that they're more willing to be creative, they're less conservative, they're more open to ideas, bigger ideas, and they're more willing to push the envelope. Whereas back in the day, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, it seemed like everyone was just, trying to still be PC and ultra conservative. And now it's about being a part of the current conversation. So many clients now are willing to, my Black clients in particular, a lot of times as Black business owners, there's that tug of war. Do I let people know I'm Black? Do I let people know that the firm is a Black owned firm or not? And now I have people who are ready to come out and step out in front of the brand and not be shy. In fact, be vocal about the fact that this is Black owned, because they now see that the conversation maybe is ready for that. So definitely that aspect. And then the other one of the most important things is people are ready to pay. Like, people are ready to put up money, and they're seeing financially, they're seeing the value of what we bring to the table. Whereas some of the clients or some of the people I worked with in the past, they saw the value of the service, but they just, for whatever reason, were afraid or what have you. Now I'm getting none of that. And so I think there are a number of changes for the positive from a client perspective that I'm starting to see down here in Houston.
Well, thank you for that co-signing that people are now wanting to say, how much do I owe you? Usually
Absolutely.
you have to have that conversation. And so now they're going, how much do I owe you? What will it take to do this? I received a phone call. And we're still a 4 a.m. people. I received a 4 a.m. email and then a phone call saying, I need to get with this guy. And what would it take to engage you? Can I give you a retainer? I said, hold on. Let me see if I'm awake first.
Right. I mean, invoices are being paid so quickly. My head's spinning. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, this is amazing. So,
so it's great. And I just want to welcome Sherry. I see you in there, Sherry. Your face is undone. You unmute and say hello. This is a happy hour. We are informal. So you can show us your face there. Hi, Sherry. Unmute yourself and say hello, Sherry. And also, you guys, if you're looking at Tony, you're looking at me, all of you speakers will get this t-shirt. Of course, social distancing does not mean social disengagement, but we're wearing our shirts today. Those who wear their shirts also get the people who wear the shirts on the webinar will get a mask, a social distancing mask from us as well. So we're glad to do that. Back to what we were saying here about Misty, is about customers being invoicing and paying. How are you, and what is your value and your take on, and by the way, I get it too. I've got more customers telling, make sure they know I'm Black. I said, okay, I could do that.
Yes.
I used to get, make sure they know I'm just as good as they are.
Yeah.
But make sure they know I'm Black. How are you able to take on larger projects, and how do you partner with all of us in the mix here?
So I'm able to take on larger clients just because I had to restructure my business. I had an actual full-time employee, I had office space, all these things, and then COVID happened, and a lot of my clients were doing large events that have obviously got shut down. So I've had to really scale back and then make it to where my business model is more flexible. So I do have people I can bring on and off as needed. And then the types of clients that I have now, the projects are different. So whereas before it was heavy on large events and luncheons and workshops and conferences, now everything's digital. So I'm able to hire from anywhere, and it doesn't, I'm not forced to have a certain amount of space and things like that. So I'm able to, it's really made me more flexible, if anything. And that's just been a blessing. So my overhead is way low. And so it's more profit than it is anything else than expenses. So that's been a great thing.
Hey, lady, thank you for sharing. Let's move on to our other guest. But one last question, and this is a wish list question. So just think, if all things were possible, what client would you want today? I would want Jada Pinkett Smith, but go ahead.
I would want Issa Rae.
Issa Rae, all right.
I would love Issa Rae.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I thought I'd wake up the group here. They think they getting them. So basically, we're all PR people, but they're asking where you're based. We know you're domiciled in Houston, but every time I find you, you're in another city. So that answers that question. And so let's move on. I would like to talk to my long-term friend. I call her my ride or die friend because we have done so much together in so many places. And I wanted to reach out to Toska Medlock Lee. She's just an amazing powerhouse. And she has a very unique industry. It's faith. And faith has taken a forefront here, although it should have been the forefront at all times. And I'm sure Toska will endorse that it is the forefront anyway, but she's the CEO of the Myriad Group, and it's a marketing agency too. 25 years in the business, and does some outstanding work. And her touchstone is so permanent that it's beautiful. And she supports the marketing and branding of the United Methodist Church, and that is a second largest denomination there. And we are also church members. Hey, and so I rejoined the church with her in there, and her background is marketing, communications, event planning, community engagement, and meeting planning as well. You know, PR is a place of many hats. We all know that. And so my question to you is, Toska, what is the shift in the perspective in your clients and your stakeholders? What have you shifted to doing during this pandemic that's both racial and health wise?
Racial and health. Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. And I also, my roots were in journalism, so I worked in broadcast journalism in Dallas, Texas, before I launched my agency about 17 years ago. And so I'm based in Dallas, Texas, but I also have a space here in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I am now, which is the headquarters of the United Methodist denomination. And as you can imagine, since COVID-19, the faith-based industry has been it's been an interesting place with everybody having to shift from a physical church building to virtual worship. And so I found myself working not only with churches within a denomination, but with clients just scrambling about how to do that. And it's amazing how many, a lot of us grew up in church, and we know the structure of a church is to do the same thing all the time. And so one of the reasons why a generation has possibly been lost in the faith community is because the church is still doing church like it always has done it. It's still trying to reach people the way that it has always reached people. And so when we began to talk about, social and digital integration and utilizing these millennials who are digital natives, to help, this was, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, to help birth a generation interested in faith. And then nobody was really interested. And it's amazing how COVID just immediately pushed everyone to that space. And now we had a campaign probably about 4 or 5 years ago that was called Rethink Church. And people thought we were crazy with the campaign Rethink Church. And it was an international campaign, and it was really for unchurched people that we called nuns, like nunion. And in that campaign, we began to think, what would church look like if we stopped fixing churches and start seeing people that God is calling us to reach, just to see people. So seeing the person that's on crack, seeing the person that is reentering into community, seeing person, just what would it look like if we stopped trying to determine what color the carpet's gonna be and, who leads what song, and, what if it looked like if we did that? So that campaign, Rethink Church, just kind of floated out there. But now our campaign is Church Can Happen Anywhere. And so it's been very, very unique and wonderful to be in this faith space, to be able to help churches transition, because now many of them are finding themselves in crisis. So do I open? Do I not open? And when I open and some of my congregants are sick, or the pastor then dies, 5 days later, and we've all seen those stories where they've decided they were going to open and then the pastor dies, and then it's like you're in crisis because you have an entire community that is that's looking at that. So we've been doing a lot of webinars. We've been doing a lot of teaching. We've been doing a lot of equipping with clergy leadership on crisis communications, on public relations, and just how to properly reopen and how to communicate that to your congregation, because it's more than just having hand sanitizer stations and everybody coming in with a mask. So how do you communicate what the CDC guidelines are saying, and then what your local people are saying, and how do you stay out of the muddled water of the politics of what, you know, number 45 is saying? So it's been a very been a most interesting niche. I've been in this space for probably about 12 of my 17 years in business. I've been in the faith-based space. So that's kind of like what I'm doing. And I think that, Terry, with how they are navigating is, what I'm learning is that, you know, if you're a Bishop T.D. Jakes, or you're one major mega church, and you have a whole slew of teams, or you have the ability to hire an agency, but 99% of the churches and faith organizations are not that. You know, so what we know is that most of the people who go to a service or what have you, don't go to a mega church, though they're just a percentage of it. So we are equipping those medium churches, you know, that's worshiping 250 to 1,000 people every Sunday, which is the majority of faith communities.
I have a question for you. What is the success? Because a lot of the churches that I've spoken with that have reached out to me are saying, how are we going to get people back? And my question to them is, why are you concentrating on something that's not possible now? But are there going to be a transition, or is there going to be a challenge to get people back in the seats?
I'm writing a manual, not right now, called When We Return. Mm-hmm. So, in that manual that I am preparing, and then I will do some teaching on it, is for faith leaders to be able to talk through a strategy on when we return, because you're going to return. Places are going to open. And so again, the strategy is not just to say, hey, we have a hand sanitizer station at every front door and everybody's going to wear masks. Well, CDC is now saying that choirs are the place where, you have the air pockets that are lingering in the air. So this manual is going to talk about how you equip people. It's going to talk about even reservation systems. I've been talking with some technology people about how people can now make a reservation to go to church. Oh. Then you'll know how many people were there. So you have proper social distancing and, and that sort of thing. So I'm crafting a manual that with the help of health experts and technology, so that our faith leaders can begin to understand how you reopen, how you return.
Oh, that's amazing work. Tell me, I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked everyone else. Who would be your ideal client? It seems like you have a unique ideal client anyway when you're dealing with the United Methodist Church and the faith industry. And we understand the challenge they have. You and I are working on webinars right now about share that, because I'm going to be working on re-entry and getting people re-entering society as entrepreneurs and as viable citizens. But we had shared some other workshops. Go ahead and share that with us.
Yeah, so part of my work also is that I am the founder and the producer of a national prison summit and social justice conference that we would do every other year. And that's a work that became very personal to me because about 12, 13 years ago, my children's father was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison, and I found myself parenting through incarceration. And so that work became a interesting work for me, because one of the first things I did was start researching about kids of incarcerated parents, and learned that 70% of children with an incarcerated parent will they themselves be incarcerated. And so I began this journey of not my sons.
Mercy.
And so this journey led to a passion that I have now for the 2.7 million children with a parent that's incarcerated. And I started looking at our school systems that have our inner city school systems that have just, it's just amazing how many kids are sitting in classrooms with the parent that's incarcerated, but the teacher doesn't know, the counselor doesn't know, the nurse doesn't know, no one knows, because, it's no way to document it. And then, of course, in the Black community, we're not trying to shout it to the rooftop that my dad is in jail, you know?
Absolutely.
So I began to look at the statistics of the number of students and young people that were in juvenile and or in detention that then had a correlation to a parent that was incarcerated. And so that led me to, just really doing some work. And now I started doing some work around a new narrative change in this whole space of PR and marketing for organizations and for families who are impacted by incarceration, so that we can loosen the silence and begin to heal our community and our families just by talking about it. So that work is a work that Terry and I have gotten into, and now it's a sexy work because everybody and their mama want to do social justice.
Yeah, everybody won't be just mercy. So everybody want,
but it's a real theme because it really impacts our community.
Right, and it's just it's terrible. I'm about to say this after Toska's just finished, but this is a happy hour. My drinks are over here. I don't see anybody raising their drink up. We're an informal process. Oh, I see you there. And I've just got about 28 emails saying, make sure you load this up. We've got to see it. So a lot of our people are in the middle of a crisis. It just shows you what's going on right now. I've got an email from Tony Grant and from Google. Tony Grant at Google, and Sheena, she's with CNN. There's another guy for the paper. They said, make sure you load this link. I want to know what they have to say, and can we reach them after this? So they're going to see all of this. I do appreciate that. And I just put in there, one of the things I think is most important is the link for mentoring. And this is a happy hour, and I mean hour. Y'all know me, I don't believe in past 45 minutes. So we're going to work this like we work it. And thank you, Toska, so much for sharing what you've done and the work that you do, because you, all the people on this panel are people I connect with all the time, and I follow them and I support them, and I move mountains. I wake up for them. And you're doing some great work, especially when it comes to faith, because right now in the forefront of these pandemics, it is the faith-based operations that are stepping up to the plate to say, we've got to do something. And
just what Misty said something earlier about how journalists, are now reaching out to us. I mean, I've had so many, significant partnerships with journalists because, they want to tell a different type of story with COVID. And so now you have churches who are doing testing. You have so many different ways to, to position, my clients. And so that's one of the ways that we're able to do that.
Right, and I think the relationship, what I think this pandemic has brought, it is renewed the relationship. We're out of the separation and divorce mode. We're in the marriage mode. And journalists and PR people are actually making relationships work like we did before.
Is it entanglement? Let's just use the word
entanglement.
Let's just get it out the way, right?
Simone, I wasn't going to do that. I was not going to use the word entanglement. You know that I want to be Jada Pinkett's next husband. So
I mean, you might be able to get it now.
You may not have to be her husband. You just get entangled.
I don't want no entanglement. I don't want to be a side piece. I'm just waiting for Will to say, okay, I'm done. And I'm going to have my Jada Pinkett sign. I go, over here. So I've had a crush on her since a different world. But anyway, we'll let that go. I can't believe this is going to be on the recording. So, so let me switch over to my other friend who's been so helpful for me, especially when we were in the other conferences, when we were at the home where Prince was. I don't know. Simone, were you there when we went to Prince's mansion?
No, I wasn't. I feel like I'm like the newbie, because I feel like I started getting in deep with NABJ probably 2 years ago, and Detroit was one of my, it was my first conference.
Oh yes, right there. I remember embracing you
/ Ventura.
Last Ventura.
And I went, Misty, I went to your sessions, which were awesome. And I think I just started, being like, I need to get way more involved. I think everyone has said that NABJ is like a family reunion. And initially I went by myself and I was a little nervous because I didn't really know anyone. And I felt like, oh, it's a family reunion. Everybody's got their families together and I'm going to be like the stepchild. But everyone was so welcoming and I had such a good time. And Jerry was supposed to be in DC, and I'm from Maryland. So I was just like, oh, this is going to be great. I could do, you know, a little family time, learning, get back with my NABJ family. But, you know, we'll work it out virtually. But yeah, but now I'm like totally invested. So you can't get rid of me now.
Don't do that, because me and Misty are tired of doing all the work. We're going to give you some, and me, Misty, and Tony, and Manny, we'll do everything. We're going to give you some work to do, because I tell you, the membership will reach out to me as if I didn't have nothing to do but all day to wait for them to ask me to do something. And we need all the help we can get. Your background, so you're the partner and senior VP of communications for Magenta Communications. So you launched your own boutique agency. Now, are you in Charlotte?
I am. Yep,
All right,
Charlotte,
then.
North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
And
And
Charlotte, yay.
hey,
Tony,
for
are you in
Charlotte.
Charlotte?
He's from
No, I'm in Leesburg, Virginia, but I spent 2 years in Charlotte. When I worked for the Census Bureau, the regional office was in Charlotte. So I lived
Okay,
and worked
okay,
there
yeah,
for-
Charlotte's a great city.
That's
Yeah,
an
I
escape
love
city for
it.
me. Yeah, it was an escape city for me when I lived in New York and Atlanta. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
go to Charlotte for a couple of hours. I'll be back. See you. Your background is city government. Yeah, you've done all the things too. You definitely work for agency, and then you also work for education, and your basic background would be small markets. And
Mhm,
you're
mhm.
leveraging your skills now to launch Magenta Communications. So not only are you an entrepreneur, you're providing services for entrepreneurs. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's where we're married in our background. My background of helping startups scale up. They go from being a mom and pop to a larger space. And thank God that, going back to the economy, when we change what we change, people start going e-commerce, they start going online, and now scaling up small brick and mortars and mom and pops is really easier to lead. Let me ask you this question, lead with this. And PR professionals are often asked to lead during crisis. And then you're dealing with small business owners, you're launching your own brand. Communication is key during crisis. What are the ways that you had to step up to the plate to manage the crisis and the growth of one of your clients?
I would say one of the big things for my clients has been content creation, and really kind of changing, you know, or pivoting some of their messages that they've had. But then also giving tips and information on how they can showcase how their business is helping out during this time too. So there was a client that I worked with that is a luxury apparel client. So obviously people aren't, you know, looking at that, you know, during this time, but he started making masks, and he has a patent that with the city of Charlotte, that he can use the Charlotte crown. So a lot of other businesses aren't allowed to use that logo. And so he was able to use that to be able to create masks with that. And then he parlayed that with the mayor wearing the mask, and then a lot of the city council. So that gave us extra branding opportunities. But it was because of the relationships that he had that we were able to pivot so quickly and be able to create these masks. And it was, I would say, maybe April timeframe of when we were able to do that. So not far after, you know, we were really shut in. So it helped his business, you know, to kind of remain level. But now he's able to expand it too. So he started off with like 2 different types of masks, and now they've expanded and have sold out. So that's now one of his new business models, is having these masks, which aren't going anywhere, in addition to the luxury, you know, that he was already doing before. So I think it's just been helpful to be able to kind of brainstorm some ideas that are unique and different, that can kind of go with what we're going through right now. Because otherwise, I think, you know, his business, you know, could have potentially tanked, you know, because a lot of people aren't doing luxury goods right now.
Okay, and question then for you, and I know it's something I've asked everyone else. What is it that causes you, and we got Misty, we've got Toska, and Manny's a consultant, and so am I, and we're all owner-managed businesses. What is the benefit of you launching at this time? How are you maintaining the growth, and and what is that you would need from our group and the other people that are going to be. We have right now I have 164 reservations for on demand for this workshop, so they're going to see you. What would you tell them?
Well, I think the benefit for me has been connected to my mental health, to be honest. You know, when I started my business, I obviously didn't know COVID would be happening, but I also knew that I could use the skills that I had over 2 decades in the industry and be able to help smaller businesses and entrepreneurs to get some recognition that maybe they couldn't afford with kind of some of the big box agencies. But I think I also started thinking about this before, you know, the January. And so I knew that I just kept getting this like little small whisper of, you know, think about an agency. Oh, maybe you should just start your website. And it was just these like little small nudges. And so these nudges turned into like a rolling ball of like, okay, now my agency is here. And I think it was me wanting to have a different quality of life. And it also was me wanting to have clients that I was passionate about and really wanted to work with, and that I could make a difference in. So I think that, you know, was key for me. Right now, I feel like my business, you know, is a little slow, but I think that's because I was doing a lot of networking, you know, prior to COVID and really getting to know organizations and businesses and having those coffee dates. And those really stopped. And now I'm doing a lot of virtual stuff. So while it's slow, I still feel like I have a good peace of mind. You know, I still feel like the clients that I have, we've pivoted well. And I think this too shall pass, and, you know, I'll continue to get other clients. But I think, you know, what would be helpful is, you know, different leads and that sort of thing. But also, I feel like just connecting, you know, with Misty and Toska, just, you know, as a new business owner, I feel like I could probably gain so many skills from you, from things that you've already, you know, been doing with your business as well. So
Simone, I just sent my number to you in the private chat, and I want to encourage you because I started my business kind of in that same vein. And,
okay.
And I just want you to know that sometimes, well, actually, this is the very best opportunity for a new business. It really, really is. Mm-hmm. So I just want you to be encouraged and keep doing what you're doing. And I'll, you know, if I have any projects, I'll definitely, you know, connect with you, which is why I sent you my number in the private chat, because my business started out of crises. Mm-hmm. It started completely out of crises, and I have not looked back.
Oh, good.
I second that.
Yeah, I mean, even in the middle of COVID, I still feel so good. You know, I felt better than a lot of days in, you know, previous jobs. So I know that I've like the decision is right for me, you know, because I'm like, wow, I'm not really worried. You know, I'm not really, you know, shouldn't I feel a certain kind of way? I'm in the middle of a pandemic and what I call a revolution. But I'm like, no, I'm still feeling pretty good. So I feel like I made the right decision.
We're great.
Well, I just want to tell you, when I go back, we've got a database of 150 entrepreneurs that are part of our membership. There's not one of us that didn't start during crisis. Okay, and my crises are different than others. I took on Dr. Phil, and I didn't know he wasn't Dr. Phil at the time. He was who he was. He was a science specialist in courtroom, but he got a client named Oprah. And she won her case, and she had him promise to reach out to Black clients and Black churches, and I got the call to connect him to Black churches, and I still thought he was Phil McGraw. I didn't know he was, you know, because the trial and the show hadn't been aired at the time. But then I had to build a relationship, and then we got to know him as it began to fold out, and the industry term was that Dr. Phil must have been raised by some Black grandmothers, because all this stuff comes out, so matter of fact and in your face. Just do it. And so there was a crisis. I was looking at Lynn out in LA. She had to handle a crisis with a celebrity coming out of a movie. So crisis is where we end. This is our moment. And our very first, and Misty can confirm, our very first webinar, we talked that this is our time. Crisis is our time. This is our wheelhouse, and we're able to redirect. And so I advise people now is that you make sure you attend the conference and go in there and speak to the others and bridge with them, because one of your biggest gifts right now, Simone, is to pitch to customers that you can develop their crisis message. Because our young people, our Generation Xers, our millennials, are looking at the brands that they're buying, and they're demanding that they step up to the plate for social justice, or they're going to spend their dollars elsewhere. And people are scrambling to redo those messages, and they're going to have to get someone that looks like us to get that message, because they've had that message for 410 years and haven't got it right. So there's an opportunity there. Tony?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell Simone, I have a very good friend of mine who was just named last week a director with the Small Business Development Center in Southern Maryland. And she started a job, was $50,000, said, no, you're crazy, don't do it. And now she's a director. And we talked extensively last week. One of the big issues with small businesses right now is communication in terms of getting information about PPP and all of that. She's still doing this because small businesses are in crisis now. They need guidance in terms of communication, messaging, which she said that she's not able to do. And she faults SBA because she says the marketing and the messaging coming out of SBA absolutely is terrible.
It sucks.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly what she said.
Period.
Exactly. She said that it sucks, and it's such a disservice to her clients that she has to leave now, because now she is at another level. So they got to bring somebody in to work with these clients who don't know them. So there's going to be this whole lag time. But whatever you could do to bring information and communication services, and as Terry says, the crisis communications, a lot of these small businesses are in crisis right now, and they don't know, what happens come, the fall. Some of them have been trying to get PPP money forever, and they don't know if they're going to be able to survive. And they really need that, that expertise. So that's where your niche is. You're in the right place, and just know, continue, because small business is what makes America go.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. There are more small businesses than there are major corporations. They hire the most amount of people. They're the biggest employers, and we need small business. If small business goes down the tank, that's it. That's the end of the economy. So what you're doing is good. I would say hang in there. My friend hung in there, and now she's the director. So so just be encouraged, and just know, be encouraged, and know what you're doing is the right thing.
And don't forget to lean on us. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
The one thing I've pushed all the time, and everybody who knows me, and I'm not nice about it, is that we are not competing with each other. We're not big enough to handle everything, and that we have to collaborate. We have to get into that mode where we have the right collaboration agreements. So we have it written that we're doing, but we need to lean on each other. Just like I was telling you about the North American Green Book, which I all get. That's a place where all of you are going to be listed, because these corporations are scrambling. And if you can go to PayPal and see their message that was written by a person who later they reached out and made them the vice president of diversity and inclusion. And it wasn't even a diversity inclusion job before that. So we are at the end of our happy hour, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and it's going to be on demand and repeated. So you're going to probably get a lot of questions. And so I want to thank Misty. I want to thank Toska. I want to thank Simone for coming forth, and Juan. And so one last question I want you each to close with in just 10 seconds is, what skill do you think is the most savvy skill that we need to have acquired or use during this time? I'll start with you, Misty.
Adaptability for technology. If you're not you're afraid of technology, get unafraid real quick and just adapt. Learn
Yes.
what you can learn. You know, you don't have to know everything, but just adapt to that. I think that's going to be key now and into the future.
Toska.
I just totally have to agree with Misty, because all of my conferences have turned virtual, which is why I was picking Juan about what platform they were using, because we all know Cvent, we all know Hoover, you know, some of those basic ones. But to have the experience that we want our clients to have, it's the technology, and I say that, and then the ability to become a digital native. And you know, I'm 52 years old, so when I was in school, you know, it was not, I was in journalism school. Even when we were in radio broadcasting, there was nothing, you know, about, you know, digital content and all that type of stuff. So just, and then to never stop evolving with your craft, you know,
Right.
becoming that digital native. And, you know, I've used this time for certifications and to do different work webinars and things of that nature. Just get as much as you can under your belt.
And thank you, Toska. And Toska's just not telling the truth. She's not a day over 39. Let's do that. Simone, what you got?
I think that's, you know, I'm just gonna third everything. I also will say that there's a couple of certifications that I'm looking into that are free, just to refresh myself. There's Muck Ruck started doing free classes. So I'm
Yeah.
going to do their media relations one, and they have a social media one. And then, you know, there's a lot of the Ivy League colleges that are doing different courses too. I don't know, I haven't seen any that were related to communications, but I saw one that was around well-being. And so I feel like, you know, there's some connection there too, especially in the time of a pandemic. So just looking into those other options that will help me to have more of an edge as we get back into the world. I never say it's a, you know, a new normal. I say like it's a reset or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that
one of the
when we
things
get past the normal that we're in, it's going to be different. There are things that we're never going to go back to. And
I don't think we should.
right, you're right. It's waking us up. Manny, you said that you're going to be doing a social media certification. Manny and I are both social media trainers. I'm a social media trainer certified with Constant Contact. So,
Okay.
Manny, you said you're doing a social certification class. You want to announce that on screen for us, please?
Yeah, I'm doing a social media certification class. I'm also taking a class with it's basically it's a writing class for fiction writing, and the lady teaching the class, she was saying that there's a lot of of authors who need to do social media, but they're not really aware of it. So she was saying that if I take social media certification, I might be able to develop a business line helping authors get up and running on social media. So I might be trying to develop a business in that area too.
Yeah, and I just want to add to this.
Can you list where your where your certification, where you're doing that certification with?
It's from a course I'm taking from Udemy.
Can you do me a favor, Manny? If you don't have the information immediately, to put it in the chat, can you place it on the LinkedIn page?
Yeah, I will.
All right, I'm putting the site on the LinkedIn page. In my close, y'all, I just want to tell you, I don't care anybody. I don't care if if you are over 30, learn TikTok. It is caused some marketing success across the board. Even El Michelle is doing TikTok and is moving her coaching business. So TikTok is somewhere else, and be prepared for those platforms to merge. And I think that technology, I mean, I'm the fourth one to condone that our technical savviness has got to come to the plate, but we've also got to teach our clients how to be technically savvy and let them know that we have to shape their messages. We have to control their narrative, so their narrative won't get them to tank their companies. So thank you guys for doing this, and I want to appreciate it. Now, I do want to let you know that all 9 of our workshops we've done on self-care, we've done on entrepreneurship, we've done one on acquiring corporate clients with social justice messages, and we had Ben and Jerry. I remember one of our members who brought Ben and Jerry to the table. We've done self-marketing. We've done public media writing for PR with former board members here. So we have all 8 of those happy hours, and we're going to continue. We just won't be going weekly now. We'll be going monthly. And I want to say that it has been a blessing to have all of you here. Thank you for being here. We're going to close, but make sure you go and look at the virtual convention. And also, Toska, I'll give you all the information I can when I gather it on the virtual companies that gave us bids, so you'll have all of them. And make sure you register. And also, let's reach out to each other. I need everyone to go to that LinkedIn page and say a great comment about what was exchanged here today, and also on our Facebook page. Thank you for being here. And the link for mentoring is there too. So make sure you download the chat. And Simone, you can send me that information about those classes, and I'll send it out to everybody.
Okay.
Also, I just caveat, CVent is offering a free certification. It's usually $3,900. It's free. So let's look at that, and I'll put that in the email in the chat. So let me everybody say goodbye. Of course, Sherry's there, and she just hit me up. She said if she gets a t-shirt like the one Tony and I are wearing, she'll show her face. We got you, Sherry. I called you out. So Simone, Toska, everybody send me your email address so I can get the t-shirt to you, because you get one for speaking. Thank you.
Right.
Enjoy the
Thank you
rest of your day.
all.
God bless everybody.